For thousands of years, one question has haunted historians and scientists alike. Where do the Kurds really come from? Some believe they descend from the ancient Medes, those forgotten empire builders of the East. Others say their roots stretch even deeper, all the way back to the first civilizations of Mesopotamia, the cradle of human history itself. But here's what nobody expected. DNA evidence has finally given us answers, and what scientists discovered about Kurdish genetic origins will shock you. This isn't just another ancestry story. This is about a people whose bloodline holds secrets buried in the mountains for millennia, secrets that connect the world's first farmers to ancient wanderers from distant lands, secrets that challenge everything we thought we knew about the Middle East. And what researchers found when they tested Kurdish DNA, you won't believe it. When researchers began analyzing DNA samples from Kurdish populations across Iraq, Iran, and Turkey, something strange emerged. Despite living in 4 different countries, separated by borders and politics, the Kurdish samples showed remarkable similarity. Their DNA revealed a shared ancestry, a common genetic foundation that stood completely apart from neighboring groups. The Kurds weren't just random people grouped by geography. They were descendants of an ancient, unified population that had inhabited these mountains for thousands of years. Most Kurdish men carried genetic markers from haplogroups like J2 and G2, both deeply rooted in the ancient Near East. These are the exact same lineages found at the heart of early farming civilizations, the people who built the first villages, the people who planted the first crops. This means the ancestors of today's Kurds likely walked these very mountains when agriculture itself was being born. Long before Persia existed, long before Arabia, even before the stories in the Bible. But the mystery deepens, because Kurdish DNA also carries whispers of something completely unexpected. Hidden within Kurdish DNA are traces from another world entirely. Some lineages point back to the Indo-European steppe migrations, those massive waves of nomadic tribes who swept across Eurasia thousands of years ago, spreading languages and cultures that shaped Europe and South Asia. Inside the Kurdish genome, scientists found a delicate but unmistakable blend, the deep roots of the Fertile Crescent intertwined with genetic winds from the northern steppes. It's as if the Kurdish people stand precisely at the meeting point of 2 great human stories, the first farmers of the south and the ancient wanderers of the north. This blend might explain something profound about Kurdish culture itself, a civilization both deeply settled and fiercely independent, but nothing prepared researchers for what came next. Some Kurdish populations, especially in western regions, showed unexpected genetic links, not to Arabia, not to Persia, but to southern Europe, to places like Greece, Italy, and the Balkans. Nobody predicted that. It suggests ancient contact between Kurdish ancestors and Mediterranean peoples, possibly through Bronze Age trade routes or forgotten migrations. The genetic story of the Kurds isn't isolated at all. It's woven into the tapestry of the entire ancient world. To understand this genetic core, scientists turn to archaeology and ancient history. Who were the first people to inhabit these mountains? The oldest evidence points to the Hurrians, an ancient civilization who built early city-states across northern Mesopotamia more than 4,000 years ago. Some scholars believe the Kurds could be their modern descendants. Then came the Medes, an Indo-Iranian people who rose to power around 700 BC, founding one of the first empires powerful enough to challenge Assyria. Many historians have connected the Medes directly to the origins of Kurdish identity. Even the name Kurd itself likely evolved from ancient tribal names of that era. When you examine the genetic evidence, these theories suddenly make perfect sense. The blend of ancient Near Eastern and Indo-European ancestry found in modern Kurds fits exactly with what we know about the Medes. Modern Kurds may represent something truly extraordinary, a living bridge between the earliest farmers of Mesopotamia and the great Indo-European migrations that reshaped all of Eurasia. The Kurdish homeland, the Zagros Mountains, is one of the most isolated regions in the entire Middle East. Its valleys run deep, its mountain passes narrow, its winters brutally harsh. Throughout history, when conquerors swept through the lowlands, Kurdish communities retreated higher into the mountains. That isolation became their shield. But what scientists discovered next changes everything we thought we knew. Every great story has a turning point. For scientists studying the Kurdish genome, that moment arrived when they compared Kurdish DNA to all surrounding populations. The results didn't just surprise them. They shattered every expectation. The Kurdish people aren't simply a branch of Persian, Arab, or Turkish ancestry. Their genetic roots reach back thousands of years deeper, to a time before those civilizations even existed. When scientists examined the data more closely, they uncovered even more astonishing details. A few Kurdish samples carried ancient markers linked to the very first Neolithic farmers of Anatolia, the pioneers who invented agriculture more than 10,000 years ago. Other samples bore traces from the mysterious Caucasus hunter-gatherers, a lineage that helped shape much of early Eurasia. The Kurdish people carry some of the oldest surviving genetic signatures in the world. Yet alongside those ancient roots are small but unmistakable hints of Indo-European ancestry from tribes who swept down from the Eurasian steppes around 5,000 years ago. That's why researchers now describe the Kurds as a living bridge connecting the world's earliest farmers to the later Indo-European civilizations that transformed history. But when they compared Kurdish DNA to global populations, they found something nobody expected. Similarities not with Arabia or Iran, but with parts of southern Europe. How is that even possible? Traces of shared ancestry appeared with ancient Greeks, Italians, and even Balkan peoples. The answer might lie in forgotten trade routes and migrations through the Bronze Age, when sailors and merchants connected the Mediterranean world to Mesopotamia. Civilizations like the Minoans, Mycenaeans, and Hittites moved ideas, precious metals, and unknowingly, genes across vast distances. Over centuries, those exchanges left faint but permanent genetic marks in Kurdish DNA. To truly understand what all this means, you have to look beneath the surface into the world of ancient tribes that once ruled the same lands the Kurds now call home. The Hurrians were among the first, building cities like Urkesh and Nuzi high in the northern Mesopotamian plains over 4,000 years ago. Their language, unlike any known family, may still echo faintly in Kurdish speech patterns today. Then came the Mitanni, who ruled a vast kingdom stretching from Syria to Iran. They were horse riders, warriors, and skilled diplomats, a hybrid culture blending local Hurrian elements with Indo-Aryan influences. Their very existence mirrors what we now see in Kurdish DNA, a fusion of the steppe and the Fertile Crescent. Centuries later, the Medes emerged, another mountain people who helped topple the mighty Assyrian Empire. Many historians have long believed the Kurds are their direct descendants, and genetically, that theory fits remarkably well. But the story goes even deeper. The Kurdish story doesn't begin with the Medes or the Persians. It begins long before history even had a name. In the caves and valleys of the Zagros Mountains, archaeologists have uncovered traces of some of the world's first humans. At Shanidar Cave, they found the graves of Neanderthals laid to rest with wildflowers. It's one of the earliest proofs of compassion in our entire species. Thousands of years later, early Homo sapiens lived in those same caves, hunted the same valleys, and began to tame the land around them. By 10,000 BC, the people of these mountains were already changing the world. At sites like Zawi Kemi, Jarmo, and Ganj Dareh, they planted the first wheat, domesticated the first goats, and built small stone villages centuries before the rise of Egypt or Sumer. The soil of Kurdistan holds the memory of that revolution, the birth of agriculture itself. The ancestors of today's Kurds were among the first farmers, the first builders, the first people to stay in one place. While others wandered, they rooted themselves to the earth. But history never stands still. New tribes arrived, old kingdoms fell, and the mountains became a crossroads of civilizations. The ancient Gutians and Lulubi once ruled these ridges, fierce highland tribes who descended to conquer the Akkadian Empire itself. Their names still appear on stone reliefs carved 4,000 years ago. Later came the Hurrians, who built the first city-states across northern Mesopotamia. They spoke a language unrelated to anything we know today. What happened to them? A voice completely lost to time. Though some scholars believe faint echoes survive in Kurdish speech, then the Mitanni rose between Syria and Iran, charioteers and diplomats, who blended local Hurrian culture with Indo-Aryan influence. They worshipped gods with Sanskrit names and trained horses for kings across the ancient world. The DNA evidence matches their story perfectly, Indo-European elements mingling with the deep Near Eastern roots of the Zagros. When the Medes appeared centuries later, they inherited this entire legacy, the blood of farmers, warriors, and wanderers flowing through their veins. And when their empire rose to challenge Assyria, the mountain tribes once again stepped onto the stage of history. Modern genetics confirms what ancient chronicles only hinted at. The Kurds are the living heirs of all these forgotten peoples. Language tells the same story. Kurdish belongs to the Indo-Iranian family, yet it carries older tones beneath its surface, traces of those pre-Indo-European tongues that once filled the valleys. And just as their language held its own, so did their culture. The tribal confederations of today mirror the alliances of the Medes, independent, proud, born of the mountains. Even their mythology carries genetic memory. The legend of Kahwa the blacksmith, who rose against tyranny and brought fire back to the people, still burns in the Kurdish soul. Every spring during Newroz, Kurds light flames on mountaintops to mark the victory of freedom over darkness. But this isn't just mythology. It's an echo of survival, written across thousands of years. What makes the Kurdish story truly remarkable is how it connects to the wider world. When scientists compared Kurdish DNA to neighboring populations, the results revealed something extraordinary. The Kurdish genetic signature stands at a crossroads, positioned perfectly between the Near East, the Caucasus, and southern Europe. It shares deep ties with Armenians, Persians, and Assyrians, proving that before politics and borders existed, these peoples were part of one ancient family. Yet Kurdish DNA also carries subtle but undeniable links to southern Europe. What makes the Kurdish story different is its continuity. Most populations in the Middle East, Arabs, Turks, Persians, were shaped by massive migrations and conquests that transformed their genetic makeup. But Kurdish genetics reveal remarkable stability across both time and geography. Even after centuries of interaction with neighboring peoples, their DNA still carries the same ancient patterns, unchanged. It's as if the mountains kept whispering the same old song, generation after generation, never letting it fade. That's why scientists often call Kurdish ancestry a time capsule, not because it's pure or untouched, nobody's ancestry is, but because it holds so many layers of the human past, all preserved in one lineage. If there's one thing history proves, it's this. The Kurds have survived everything thrown at them. Empires came and went. Assyrian, Persian, Roman, Ottoman. Yet the Kurdish identity endured through it all. And now, genetic science finally explains why. It's written in their very DNA, in their cells, in their being. In an age where countless cultures have been lost to time, erased by conquest or assimilation, the Kurdish genome stands as living proof of endurance. A reminder that identity isn't always about power or political borders. Sometimes it's about persistence, about holding on when everything tries to make you disappear. So why does this discovery matter now, in our time? Because understanding where we come from fundamentally changes how we see ourselves and how we see each other. For millions of Kurds around the world, this isn't just scientific data, it's validation. It says you belong to this land. You always have. It transforms their identity from a political question into an ancient truth, one that no border, no conflict, no empire can ever erase. This is the history of the Kurdish people. From the ancient tribes of the Zagros Mountains and the mighty Medes, through empires, migrations, and the forging of modern identity, every chapter has left its mark on the Kurdish genetic code. The mountains remember, the DNA remembers, and now, finally, the world knows. The Kurdish people aren't just survivors of history. They're carriers of humanity's deepest story, holding within them the genetic memory of our species' greatest transformations. From the first farmers who changed everything, to the wanderers who spread across continents, to the mountain people who refused to be forgotten, their story is humanity's story, written in blood and bone, passed down through 10,000 years.